angels willing to hold us in their arms. When our worth was stone, our ashes, and we both passed on. Let forever mean forever and carry on.
Good afternoon. I was trying to sneak in a vape real quick before I said anything. Wow. So I've got some updates for you. I do have a topic to discuss today, and wow, where to start? The topic, I'll tell you the topic we're going to be discussing. That way, people that are clicking on the recorded monologue, that way they can decide whether or not this topic is for them. Today I'm going to be discussing mindset before, that's key, and after SHTF. Now, for this instance, I think it would be better referred to as WROL, which is a phrase that Nut and Fancy coined, and that stands for, if you haven't heard of it, without rule of law. So I think it would be better served for this topic to refer to it as without rule of law instead of shit hits the fan. And you'll see why when we get into it. So update time. Well, I did pull the potatoes, and nope, you didn't get a video. And the reason why is because you would have been highly unimpressed, as was I. There was a bunch of little bitty tiny, like marble-sized potatoes in there, but that was it. I do recall reading, well, I mean, there were some larger ones, but not very large. I do recall reading in a forum that someone else that had planted potatoes from the grocery store had that same issue, and from what I recall in that forum, it was saying that that is an issue caused by the growth inhibitor that is sprayed on them so that they hopefully don't sprout when you have them at home. So I'm thinking that's probably the case. I don't know. Next year I will get some actual starter spuds and try it from that. So I'll do it again next year, but I'll do it the right way and see what the results are from there. So sorry, no video. You would have been highly unimpressed. You know, it is what it is. I did keep them, and you know, I'll have myself some marble-sized potatoes. Anyway, so that wasn't too impressive. The stove came in, and man, it came in, and I was all excited and just itching to be able to fire it up. However, the fuel wasn't scheduled to arrive until today, in which it did. Yeah. So I guess I'll tell you about that real quick. I had a driver today, an Amazon driver, never seen before. And the dude was clearly more interested in the music that was playing on his radio than he was doing his job. And, you know, I mean, he literally sat out there probably 2-3 minutes before he even got out of the truck, picking which song he wanted to give people's packages to, I guess. So he, I guess there was deliveries for someone upstairs because he disappeared with a couple of big boxes out back. Then he delivered one over to the neighbor's house, and then oh yeah, wait, that was earlier. Yeah, I forgot, that was earlier. And I caught him before he took off, and I said, I'll save you a little bit of work. I'm showing that I'm 7 stops away. And he looked at the couple of packages that he had up front, and he's like, well, I'll be back. Okay, whatever. So he took off, did his thing, and came back, same blaring music, and grabbed my package and brought it to me, and kind of had a funny look as he's handing it to me, and the tape, you know, to tape the package shut, the box, was like completely off of the bottom. It was just like hanging there, right? And I'm like, what the hell? You know, okay, whatever. It's just box tape. So he hands it to me. I grab it. I pull out the bottle of fuel, and the cap is all busted to hell on the bottle of the fuel. And I was a little bit frustrated at that because I paid $13.77 for 32 ounces of Coleman brand fuel when you can buy it for roughly, it's 13 something, I can't remember the change, but it's 13 something at Walmart in the store to get a whole gallon of it. The reason why I paid $13.77 for 32 ounces of fuel was for the bottle. I wanted the bottle, okay? And I figured, okay, that's another 32 ounces of fuel. I'm not that hurt, you know. I do get a little more fuel, but like I said, I wanted the bottle because I plan on buying it in the gallons is what my intent is, to store up gallons of it, but I did want the smaller bottle. And anyway, yeah, I was pretty frustrated over that. I did contact Amazon. I do believe I'll have a new bottle here tomorrow. I do get to keep the old bottle, so that's good. And I did get to test the stove. And the reason why that's a big deal is anytime that you get, and do yourself a favor, anytime you get like a Coleman stove or lantern that runs the liquid fuel, make sure you test it immediately. Make sure you go over it, check it all out, because you do sometimes get bad ones. And they're very finicky. And, you know, typically if you get one brand new out of the box that doesn't run right, you want to send it back. You want to get a new one. You want one that will, in the instance of a stove, what you're shooting for is one that will, what they call simmer, which is probably a little bit different than what you would think of simmering something as far as food in a skillet or whatever. But you want one that's able to simmer, and that means you turn it'll turn down real low, like as if you were simmering food on a stove. But what you want is you want a very, very tiny blue flame, and I mean all blue, no yellow, a very tiny blue flame all the way around that burner, and it'll start doing like a crackly kind of sound, okay? That's what you're looking for. There's a reason for that. That's telling you that everything in the stove is working properly, okay? I can tell more about with arc welding with my ears than I can my eyes, okay? Because with arc welding, it's about what it sounds like. Believe it or not, it's about what it sounds like. When you hit that sweet spot when you're welding with a stick welder, it will have a crackle to it, and it's an unmistakable sound, and you know you're doing it. At least you know your distance is correct. And if you are a little more fine-tuned than that, you can actually hear incorrect angles and too fast of welding, you know. But anyway, with these stoves, you want that nice, consistent blue flame all the way around it, but it's so tiny that it's not even really making it far out of the burner, okay? And then while it's doing that, you'll hear this crackly sound. That's what is called a simmer on a Coleman liquid fuel stove. That's important, because if you can establish that with a new stove, then you know from there on out, if you have issues with that stove, you have a baseline, so to speak, to work from. So I know kind of a long-winded explanation of that, but it is more important than what you might think. Stove works beautiful, other than it's a little sticky when it comes to the valve, and I think the reason why, they have a cleaning wire in them that goes through a part called a generator. A generator is a tube that goes from one side all the way over the top and down and into the other side. It's what supplies the fuel from the valve to the actual burner. And inside of that, and it's a real tiny hole, inside of that you have a stainless steel wire that would remind you of maybe the E string on a guitar. It's really tiny. and it goes all the way through that, what they call the generator. And technically, any of them I've ever seen in the past, that poker, whatever you want to call it, that cleaner, will actually come through the jet of the stove. Now, I've already had the generator pulled off of my stove, and because I did inspect it good, and my cleaner, my poker, whatever you want to call it, that wire does not stick out. So I looked on forums, and from what I've read, that is common with the newer stoves. A lot of the newer stoves, people say that the wire does not come all the way through. So what I'm suspecting is that wire is just getting a little hung up on the inside. It will probably smooth out. However, when I do the videos and stuff for the stoves, I am going to go through and I'm going to tell you the extra parts to have on hand, and that is actually number one on my list. In fact, my next prepping item to buy is an extra generator for that stove. So I found one on eBay. The kind of disappointing thing about this stove is I'm used to being able to take the jets out, okay? With these newer models, it's one piece. The jets don't screw in to the generator. It's all just one piece, all built together. So, unfortunately, that's the way they build all the new ones. There's nothing you can do about it. However, on eBay, I found a cat that's got some old ones, like $26, which isn't bad. He's got some older generators that will fit that model stove, and they do indeed have the removable jet on them. So that's a plus. I will be going over which parts that you want to have extra to have on hand. They're not expensive, and the thing of it is my theory is, when it comes to this, and we're going to be getting a lantern as well, a liquid fuel lantern as well. The thing with this is it doesn't cost that much to be able to have enough parts to be able to keep that thing going for literally 2 to 3 lifetimes. And that is my goal. That's my intent. I hope to have enough parts on hand that the only thing that would really put a dent in being able to repair, pun intended, is if like the tank got damaged, if the tank got punctured or dented too bad to the point to where it couldn't be used. But everything else is pretty cheap. And I think I kind of went over that the other day. I showed some of that. So my intent is to make a series of videos on these stoves and eventually lanterns that not only will, you feel more comfortable about them, but you'll feel confident in being able to service them if they give you a trouble. So anyway, I wanted to give an update on that. I did test it. I was pleased with its performance other than that stickiness in the valve. I think that will work out. I don't think that's going to be a big, huge issue. I think that'll fix itself over time. We'll see, because it is something that I'll pull out from time to time. I tested it. After I got done testing it, I did go ahead and make sure it was pressurized really well. I put it away, and I will pull it out probably in 2 or 3 days or so, and without giving it a single pump, I will see if I can light that stove. That is my final test, how well it holds pressure, because when you store them, you want to store them pressurized. It's not like a weed eater or a lawnmower to where you want to drain all the gasoline out of them before you store them for winter. Now, mind you, I'm not talking about gasoline in these stoves. They will run gasoline or white gas, the Coleman white gas. I'm not talking about putting gas. If you put gas in these stoves, then you must clean that out before you store them. You must. However, if you use the white gas, which is what I recommend you to use as long as you have access to it, then when you store them, you want to fully pressurize them before you store them. That will help tremendously in keeping that running smooth. So just some important little notes to keep in mind when it comes to those. They're absolutely excellent. I about burned myself out of the kitchen today just in what time I was testing it because it was putting off so much heat. And I love them. I do. I love them. I was so excited to get that thing. But it's smaller than what I kind of anticipated, and I'll show you that too. It is smaller than I anticipated. I'm used to the big dual burner, the big green ones, Coleman green dual burner stoves. This is just a small little thing, and I wouldn't say it's small enough that I would really go backpacking with it, although some people kind of advertise it like that, or mention that that's what they do. I wouldn't do it. There's much better options, especially in a non-SHTF situation to where you're just going hiking or backpacking or whatever. There's much better options that are much more lightweight and more compact. So anyway, now that I've spent all that time just talking about the goopy stove, let's get on topic a little bit. Let me have a sip. I love my coffee. Okay, so mindset before and after, and we're going to use WROL, without rule of law. First off, and this is how I'm going to start off with something that's going to make people really happy. So there's this discussion that keeps popping up, and rightfully so, in the prepper groups, and I mentioned this the other day as well, about, what do I do if my spouse won't get on board? What do I do? Well, I'm one of those people that I believe in honesty, and I believe in being blunt. I believe in just saying it. And the thing of it is let's say we're in that situation. Let's say Jen and I are married. I guess that really doesn't matter, but whether we're married or not. But let's just say Jen and I are married, and let's say she's not on board with prepping, and she's probably going to be offended by this, by the way. Not you literally now, but I mean, I'm talking about if this hypothetical were real, the person, the significant other, is probably going to be a bit offended. I'll tell you what, the eventuality, okay, of what will happen if you don't have this conversation is going to be a hell of a lot more offensive than what you could say today. However, here's the thing. We all like to make our lives easier. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. However, if you don't do, the hard things, if you don't do the things now, I'll sound like Baron Dependent, if you don't do the things now, okay, guess what? You're going to have to do them later. And just how easy is that going to be? And I would advise people to have that honest conversation with their spouse if their spouse just is not on board with it at all. I would have that conversation and say, look, would you rather be a little bit upset with me now and go ahead and me start doing some things, buying some things, than you being upset with me later because I can't do those things and can't buy those things. Now, this is just a little bitty bit of the conversation I'm wanting to have with you. This is not all-encompassing whatsoever. But that's what I would highly recommend. You just lay it right out, There are probably going to be arguments when it comes to prepping, especially when you're dealing with somebody that's not fully on board. Jen is about, from all that I can gather, about 90% on board. I do see she gets frustrated sometimes. She doesn't really say it, but I see sometimes that it frustrates her. But I'm blessed for that, and I know it. If you're dealing with somebody that's 0% on board, you probably need to have this conversation. Because it's a matter of fact that if you wait until afterwards, your life is going to be a million times harder in about every way that you could imagine. So you'd be better served to get that argument out of the way now so you can start on the process, start on that journey. However, like I said, that's just a really, really tiny, minute part of the things I'm talking about. Mindset before and after WROL. Before. You don't want to be a negative person all the time. You want to retrain your thinking, your way of thinking. And the reason why is because those that are around you, especially after a major event, they're not going to want to hear people that just say they can't, right? The thing is people are going to try to be focused on doing, on achieving the hard things. And it may not necessarily make it physically harder when somebody says, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. And when I say can't, earlier I said I can't. And I don't mean it as in I can't, but as in we'll never be able to achieve this. We can't do this. This won't happen. That kind of an attitude. Not necessarily that individual personally, but meaning as a whole, we're not going to be able to do this, okay? It's one thing to have to do the things. It's another thing to have to do the things in a negative, umbrella, so to speak, above it all. So that's probably something to work on today. Just trying to become a little bit more of an optimist about it. I'm very optimistic about it. I truly, really optimistic about it. And I keep it that way. Because the more optimistic about it that I am now, the more optimistic I'll be about it then. Okay? And it's an important concept to think about, to consider. The other thing is, and again, this falls under the before, is your relations, your just general interactions with other individuals. Okay? I would highly suggest that people work on not being an asshole. Seriously. Because the thing of it is you want to be able to be prepared to deal with unsavory individuals, but you don't want to just start off making others think that you're an unsavory individual. You may need to work with that other person. If you put that person off right from the get-go, probably not going to turn out so good as far as working together. So that's something people, I think, really need to think about is, their mindset in dealing with other people. Because all of this stuff, when I'm doing this, the before stuff almost covers the after stuff, okay? And the thing of it is, the reason why you wanna get this habit now is because you don't want to slip up in a time, in a situation to where you're going to be more frustrated, when you're going to be more willing to fly off the handle over something stupid or whatever the case may be. And I say something stupid, and I'm talking about things that you should be prepared for. Eventualities that you may not necessarily know are going to happen. Like, okay, you break a tool, you may need to borrow a tool from somebody else, okay? And of course, I'm speaking in the after right now. You may need to borrow a tool from somebody, okay? So if you're all pissy because you broke yours or lost it or whatever the case may be, and you have that attitude when you make initial contact with that other person, they may tell you no just because of your attitude. It's important things to think about. My hope is that after an SHTF event, that this will become a better world to live. I didn't say easier. I said better. Meaning people respect one another. People actually honestly care about one another. That's what I see. I see the silver lining in the cloud that is SHTF. And that's what I focus on, because that's what I fully believe is going to happen. I have no doubt in my mind that after a major event like that, that we will become a better society, a much more polite, much more caring society. You look on social media today, and it's disgusting, the things that individuals will say about other individuals just simply because they don't personally know them and they don't care. You know, I think if a lot of people that make those comments just stopped and put themselves in those shoes, or in the families of those people's shoes, or whatever the situation would require, I think they would have a totally different attitude. But because they can distance themselves not only away from the situation, but also from the person that they're responding to, it's a lot easier to become a jackass. These are things you want to work on today. Because in my opinion, it won't serve you well today, but pretty much in everybody's opinion, it's not going to serve you well tomorrow. Meaning after SHTF. Now, I've been saying SHTF, and I said it'd be better served to use the term WROL, which is, again, without rule of law. The reason why is because I believe it gives you a little better idea of the mindset, or a possible mindset. What type of comment, for instance, today might start an online bickering contest back and forth to where both men need to put their purses down and calm down. In a real life situation, face to face, could get your jaw broke. It could possibly get you shot. And that would be an awful stupid risk to take just because you want to be a jackass. So it's important, seriously, to work on these skills today. We've got too much of this running off at the mouth these days. Way too much. I've been watching a lot of the reaction over the shooting that had just happened in California. And it's the same as usual. You got a bunch of idiots out there. You know how many times that I've read in comments, "Oh, I bet he's going to turn out to be Muslim. I bet he's going to turn out to be Muslim." Really? It's ridiculous. It truly, truly is. Why do we have to try to define the box in which a madman resides in? Because let me tell you what, those madmen, or women, got to be equal opportunity, right? They reside in all boxes. All boxes. We can't define whether or not a man or woman of the cloth is going to be a sexual predator by whether or not they're Catholic. That would be foolish. Because there's plenty of Baptists that have gotten involved in those things, and many, many others. It's not defined by the Catholics. Now, it may be prominent, but also you have to look at the numbers. The Catholic Church is the biggest church. So clearly there's going to be more numbers. We have to watch out for these things. And I'm serious, because they're going to have a direct impact after SHTF, which leads to WROL. And it's just something, this is one of those topics that I think about it all the time. That's what I think about when I read through the comments on social media and how uncaring people are. It's crazy. It's like our society today has an inability or less ability to actually deeply think about something. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. I saw a meme today. Thought it's true. The meme was hilarious, although it should be sad, if that makes any sense to you. So, if you ask a Republican or a Trump supporter about jobs, oh yeah, well there's blah, 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 more jobs today, blah, 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 blah. Economy's so good, blah, 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 which is bullshit, by the way. There are more jobs. That is true. There are more jobs in numbers, right? But just as the meme said, and it was a woman working at Walmart in the meme, just as she said, yeah, there are more jobs. I've got 3 of them and still can't pay my rent. There are more jobs. There are more jobs. But that doesn't mean that people are any more able to pay their bills. It's a numbers game. And that's what the left and the right use constantly back and forth with statistics. They use games, which is another thing you want to avoid. You want to avoid playing games with people after SHTF, because there are individuals that will pick up on that. And it won't serve you well. Not whatsoever. You know, this is a topic that I think about all of the time. All of the time. Psychology is a passion of mine. Probably my biggest passion. Believe it or not. It's probably my biggest passion. And I think somebody's mindset, somebody's mental plan for after a major event is going to play a huge role in whether or not they succeed. Whether it be having the confidence to be able to deal with the tasks at hand, or whether it's how you interact with other people. You know, right now there still seems to be a fair amount of people out there that kind of have the attitude that they're going to be able to do it on their own. Not a good attitude. Not a good attitude. And I would say I would refrain from even having the attitude that you can do it with a small group. Man, there's a lot of stuff that needs done. A lot of stuff. And then you've got security on top of that. Small group, it's going to make it rough. Now, if you could get a community on board, and I know that's not likely going to happen until after an event, but if you can get a community on board to work together, now you've got something. But Watchman, that's more mouths to feed. Yep. And more people to plant, more people to, of course, plow, which comes before the planting, more people to harvest. You know, you just have to take that into consideration. But there's going to be a tipping point when it comes to having too few people. And that's pretty much an unrecoverable tipping point. If you don't have the hands, what are you going to do? So it's something to think about. The only problem is with that is a lot of people are not prepared. And that is indeed a lot of mouths to feed. A lot of unprepared mouths to feed. I think there are intelligent ways of dealing with all of this and some pretty dumb ways of dealing with all this. I think if your plan is to bug in and you try to do everything you can just to push people away, you know, let's say they know you're there, they know you've got some kind of supplies, right? Even if they don't know exactly what you got or even have a good idea, I would watch your interaction with them. Because I tell you what, they're going to turn into the big bad wolf if you're not careful. This is why I recommend that after a major event, you become a ghost. At least long enough to get a good idea of what's going on and feel out the situation. That's why my number one suggestion is be prepared, and definitely be prepared to disappear for a little bit. Because again, if you're locked up in your home and they know you've got at least some supplies, it may not serve you well just being an ass to those people and driving them away, because they may come back. They may burn you out of your home. These are all important things to think about. The mindset, again. Doesn't matter how many preps you have if somebody takes you out. Anyway, what, baby? Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter what mindset you have if somebody takes you out. It just doesn't matter. So it's important that you understand how to deal with people today. Because you don't want to burn bridges that you might need. Plain and simple. I would highly recommend that folks mentally try to put themselves in many different positions as possible. Again, before SHTF. Because that's probably, as far as other people are concerned, outside of your tight circle, that's going to be most important, is how you deal with those other people. You may need to bring in more people into your group. You may, again, like I was giving the example earlier, you may need a tool or some type of, supplies outside of what you have. And if you've already burned bridges with the individuals that can help you with that, that's where you're at. Kind of hard to unburn those bridges. That's why it's important. Relations with other people is important. But along with that, you probably have to drop the politics. You have to understand, in a situation like that, the last thing that you really need to be doing is rooting for Trump or rooting for Hillary or whoever. Okay? That's nonsensical stuff. It truly, truly is, especially in a major event, dealing with a major event. It just is what it is. But, I could literally discuss different situations for days, because I've sat here and I've thought about them. And again, that's what I'm recommending that everyone do. Give this a lot of thought, and how to deal with other people both before and after. Because again, you don't want to build those or burn those bridges today. That would be foolish. That would be stupid. It truly would. But you also want to make sure that you make the right choices when dealing with other people after an event. Because especially if you've got a location that others know where you're at, it could spell bad news. It really could. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to give a little push in the mindset direction, but important to remember that you're much better using WROL in this case without rule of law for a reason. Okay? What might get a harsh response on a Facebook post today could actually cost you your life after a major event. And that's something that really needs to be thought about. A lot of jackasses in this world. Majority of them are as dumb as dirt. But they've spent much of their life with their big mouths open, thinking they know something, and the most they get contested is on an internet forum, so to speak, meaning posts or whatever the case, whatever platform they're on. And that response doesn't truly affect them in a way that matters. After a major event, it's most certainly going to matter. Without a doubt. Anyway, I've got quite a few news headlines to read to you. Quite a few. Let's see here. Oh, I didn't run through the normal stuff. Sorry about that. Let me do that real quick. Another sip of coffee. So, anyway, you might see a much larger number there than there was last week. Well, not much, but you know what I mean. For Amazon affiliate, is quite a bit larger. Anyway, I want to thank my buddy here locally that made some purchases through our link and bumped us up quite a bit there. And I want to thank all of you that continue to use our Amazon link to make your purchases. Thank you. This is incredible. This is incredible. We are at $76.17. That's awesome. Thank you. I am going to, I probably won't be able to do it this next month when we get our affiliate money. But I do plan on getting a lantern, one of the new dual fuel Coleman lanterns. That is very likely where this is going to go. Very likely. So, thank you very much. For those that are unaware, in the description of our videos or at thewatchmannews.com on our homepage, we've got an Amazon affiliate link. If you click that when you do your shopping on Amazon and then do your searching, shopping, purchasing, it will throw a little bit our way. It doesn't cost you anything more, but just you going through our link to do so will throw a little bit our way, and it is highly, highly, highly appreciated. We also have an Amazon store, and I'm really going to be hitting this here soon, and I'm going to really break it down into some pretty cool categories here. I didn't yet, but I'm going to add one like stoves, which is just going to be stoves, okay? And I'll have another one like, for instance, lanterns. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be listing all of those parts that you need, because a lot of them you can't even get from Coleman, like little O-rings and stuff like that you can't even get from Coleman, okay? However, I am going to show you which ones you need. Now, mind you, when I do this, I probably will need to divide up which stoves. Like I've got a 533, so I'll put in the category 533 dual fuel stove, and that way you get the right parts for the right stove, because a lot of them have little differences in some of the parts. So anyway, I'm gonna get that set up real nice on our Amazon store, so you guys can be confident that if you, like for instance, purchase a stove and want to get extra parts, you can be confident that if you order through that category on our Amazon store, that you're going to be getting the right parts. So that is the plan as it stands. So anyway, I want to thank you all again for using our Amazon affiliate link. And for those that don't use Amazon and want to help out, we're trying to do as much review type of prepping type of stuff as we can. We definitely can't do that without help. And you can donate directly through PayPal. Don't have to have a don't have to have a PayPal account. You can have just a debit card or a credit card. Once again, at thewatchmannews.com, we've got a donate button. You click on that, it will take you to our PayPal donation page. Just real quick, it will say Transforming Disabilities up top. That is us. It also says the Watchman News donation. That way you can make sure. So never required, but always appreciated. So Now we can do some headlines. And like I said, there's quite a few because I did both Saturday and Sunday. I did put out some links. So another sip of coffee and we'll get onto those links. You got an old one. Well, I'll tell you what, Sherry, don't ever get rid of the old ones. The old ones are the best ones. And I mean that completely. The older stoves and lanterns, they are the best. They truly are. This one that I got, again, it's a brand new, it's a 533 single burner stove. And you can tell a huge difference in the build quality from back in the day versus now. Huge, huge difference. I mean, they still make a quality product that I think will last a really, really long time. But the old stuff was tanks. Everything that they made back in the day was tanks. Yeah, let's sip and we'll run with this. All right. Troubled nuclear fuel plant in South Carolina kept radioactive trash in leaky and rusty container. That is nuts. That is nuts. Apparently, this particular nuclear plant has been an issue in many ways. So, kind of crazy. But they've been an issue as far as equipment failures and stuff, and as well as unsafe practices by the employees. It's kind of scary. This is crazy. Siri regularly records sex encounters, sends countless private moments to Apple contractors. I mean, this thing's recorded people talking about embarrassing medical information, drug deals, like it's mentioned sexual encounters. I mean, absolutely unreal what this stuff has sent to these, what do they call them again? Apple contractors, but they called them something else actually in the article. I can't remember the word they used, but be mindful of that stuff, folks. Like Cortana, for instance, for Windows 10, is turned off. Okay, I don't have Siri on my smartphone, I don't have anything like that. Anything like that that comes by default, I disable, at least to the best of my ability. I highly recommend you do the same. I definitely wouldn't recommend putting one of those like Alexas, or they've got a million different kinds and brands now. I wouldn't recommend them. I would not recommend them. Let's see. Epstein's Lolita Express pilot subpoenaed to corroborate new sex trafficking and pedophilia claims. I seen that, and I was like, uh-oh. So we'll see. We'll see if they tell the truth, or if they don't, or if they get really depressed and shoot themselves in the back of the head 5 or 6 times before their court date shows up. We'll see. Washington greenlights military sales to Pakistan and India months after air skirmish. U.S. pushes back vote on Nord Stream 2 sanctions. Advanced enemy tech or something else? U.S. lawmaker wants Navy to explain UFO sightings. Now, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this particular article because that's just an interest of mine. Very interested in that. Venezuela accuses U.S. of another airspace violation week after scrambling jet to shadow spy plane. So, things in Venezuela, like I've been saying, folks, it's not over. It's calmed down. Not over. It's not over. Trump tells black lawmaker to clean up disgusting rat and rodent, and I think it's infested city, something to that effect. Yeah, I mean, but of course, they're all saying he's racist for saying it. I don't get that, but whatever. I mean, this is crazy. Even this article, and it is Reuters. It says down here in the very, very beginning, it's like, President Donald Trump hit out at a prominent African-American critic on Saturday. So, really, I would say that the people that are writing these articles that feel necessary to point out the color of the individuals involved, I would say they're more likely to be racist than Trump. Because what does that matter? He didn't reference the color of this person in any way. He didn't reference the color of anything. He was talking about the city and the condition of the city. It makes no sense. Everything. I mean, the man can't breathe without somebody saying, "Oh, did you see how he breathed? That was racist." I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, I'm not a Trump fan. You guys know that. But I am a fan of honesty, and I am not a fan of fake victimhood. And there's a whole hell of a lot of that going on. Which, by the way, in reference to my mindset before and after SHTF, being a fake victim is probably not a good mindset, either now or after an SHTF event. Okay? Just saying. And that's because there are people that will see through it, and it will not serve you well. Just like it's not today, right? That's how Trump got into office to begin with, is it not? Because of the left and their fake victimhood? That just strengthened his numbers, and they're continuing to do it today, and it's further strengthening his numbers. Let's see. Iran's president says illegal tanker seizure will be detrimental for UK. U.S. Marines will have problem getting out of Venezuela alive if they enter, key Maduro ally warns. Like I said, not over. Oh, for some reason, I've been accidentally double posting articles, and I don't know what's up with that. Let's see. Disgusting rat-infested mess. Trump triples down on criticism amid Twitter storm. Or We Are Baltimore Twitter storm. Taliban says no direct peace talks with government in Kabul until foreign troops leave Afghanistan. Oh, by the way, we're on yesterday's news. Sorry about that. That's important to note. That's important to note, especially on an upcoming article you're going to see here. River of radiation, life in the area of the world's third worst nuclear disaster. I shared that out because I'd never even heard of that disaster. Never even heard of it before. And here it's the third worst nuclear disaster on Earth. And I would venture to say most of us probably never even knew about it. It's crazy. Deploying joint European fleet to Persian Gulf sends hostile message, says Tehran. I'm not that good. John McAfee denies posting drone footage of Epstein's orgy island from jail. Standing Rock Sioux tribe builds huge solar farm next to controversial pipeline. Thought that was kind of cool. India in doubt on buying U.S. combat drones over cost and functionality, says reports. Yeah, once they realize, India that is, once they realize that they're not really so radar invisible, I would back away too. Tanker seizure by Britain breaches nuclear deal, says senior Iranian diplomat. UK deploys additional warship to Persian Gulf to ensure safe passage of its vessels. A woman set to replace Puerto Rico governor rejects job. U.S. Director of National Intelligence Coates to step down soon, says reports. Perfect execution. Netanyahu boasts new Israeli missile defense test in U.S. Trump taps Representative John Ratcliffe to replace Dan Coates as Director of National Intelligence. And here's the other one I was talking about in relation to that article I just said, that, more or less that Taliban says that there won't be any peace there or whatever until we leave. Hundreds of Illinois, and this is just Illinois, hundreds of Illinois National Guard members set to deploy this weekend for Afghanistan. So 400 from Illinois. I would assume that it's not only Illinois that will be going there, so I'm assuming that several other states will have National Guard members going there as well. So we're strengthening the troops in Afghanistan. Now, personally, if you were to ask why I thought this was going on, I would say that it's likely that they're building up troops in Afghanistan for possible use in Iran. That would be my guess. right? Because we already know they sent troops to Saudi Arabia, and my suspicion that those troops in Saudi Arabia are there to help with the supplies coming in so that they can stage as much stuff as possible beforehand. But if they started sending all kinds of troops there as well, then people are really going to start figuring that out. Okay? So I kind of think that's what they're doing, a little sleight of hand. I think they're sending supplies and equipment to Saudi Arabia, and I think they're going to start funneling some troops into maybe Afghanistan to kind of keep the two looking like they're two separate things. And I do realize these are National Guard troops. I do understand that. But they're probably going to be calling up a whole lot of troops when it comes to going to war with Iran, if it comes to that. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Because the numbers are down as far as troop numbers and stuff. They're down a bit. They're down a bit. So don't be surprised to see that. Just my speculation, but it's definitely my guess. That's what's going on. Mental health crisis. 5th New York Police Department officer dies by suicide in 2 months. That's 5 in 2 months. Police respond to reports of active shooter at California Food Festival. 3 reported killed in shooting at California Garlic Festival. By the way, when it comes to that, I wish they would decide on a standard, you know, for media, for reporting. I wish they would decide on a standard, because depending on which article you read, some will tell you that 4 has died, and others will tell you that 3 has died. And the difference is some reporters, some journalists will include the suspect in with the dead if the suspect was killed, okay? And then some don't. So it's a total of 4 people dead. However, one of those people is the suspect. My personal opinion, I would rather them not put the suspect in with the victims. I think that's a little bit, I mean, it's just my personal opinion. I think it's a bit disrespectful, but anyway. Iran releases audio and video allegedly showing guards warning UK worship. No quid pro quo. Britain refuses to agree to tanker swap with Iran. U.S.-led coalition on Syria kills and injures civilians, says state media. These are from this morning, by the way. Sorry, I didn't update you again. Russian military accuses U.S. of hijacking oil trade in Syria from Daesh. Okay? Now, if you go back to what I'd been saying for a very, very long time about ISIS, which is the same as Daesh, is that the reason why they finally had a hurting done to them is because Russia came in and started hurting them. Okay? They were stealing the oil from Afghanistan and Iraq and selling that oil. And they were doing the same in Syria. To my knowledge, anyway, they were doing the same in Syria, or trying to. And they were selling that oil to not only fund them, but I have a feeling certain individuals within the United States was making money off of that as well. Okay? And Russia came in, and this had been, I guess, probably going on 3 years ago. We were living in Mount Vernon when it happened. Russia came in and started bombing the hell out of the convoys of tankers. And all of a sudden, a lot of things started changing in this war on terror once Russia took out their funding. Interesting stuff. So I can't argue this one bit. A priest accused of sex abuse turned to under-the-radar group. Like right here, it says, unmarked buildings, quiet legal help for accused priests. I mean, everybody should be innocent until proven guilty. That's a fact. But I have a feeling what this is really to do is to sweep more of it under the rug. JP Morgan, Barclays, and RBS among big banks facing UK class action over Forex rigging. Talks only possible with tangible results, but U.S. does not seek dialogue, says Tehran. YouTube executive says new rules and new laws needed to tackle platforms' bad actors. So you think it was bad enough now? You think it was bad enough now? They want to get really insane with censorship. You know, here we all are pretty much in agreement arguing that they need to step away from as much of a censorship role as what they've got and picking and choosing, right? And they're wanting to double and triple down on it. In fact, they want new laws put in place so they can censor you even more. Trump blasts Baltimore crime stats, says Reverend Al might show up to complain and protest. Well, yeah, if there's money to be made, I'm sure I'll be there. China continues importing Iranian oil in defiance of U.S. sanctions. New audio reveals chatter between UK and Iran warships during Gulf standoff, says the media. And I did share a lot of articles on the whole garlic festival thing because there's a lot, or at least at the time that I shared them, there was different information in the different articles. So, California garlic festival shooting suspect identified as Santino William Legan, says reports. Massive wildfires continue to rage in Siberia, emergency declared in several regions. And next time I run across that story again, I'm going to have a couple of comments for you. Boeing better get their shit together, Ryanair boss says, as 737 MAX delays drag on. Teen identified as gunman at California Food Festival. There's a police hunt, and they do still suspect that there was a second person involved, but they're not saying whether or not they have any indication as to the role of that second person. However, I find this really interesting. This guy supposedly took out an Instagram account like a few days before his attack, and he only posted a few things supposedly. Of course, the quote-unquote authorities had quickly swooped in and had the account removed. And I'm not buying in. Why on earth would somebody be invisible as far as social media platforms are concerned, and then 3 days before committing a horrendous act, start up an account on Instagram, of all platforms, Instagram, right? And make a few posts and that be the end of it. Something just doesn't jive right there. Just doesn't jive right. You know, wouldn't somebody looking to, I don't know, bring attention or whatever the motive could possibly be there, which they're saying, at least last I knew, that they don't even know a motive at this point. I have to call BS there, too. It's usually not that hard. I'm sure they've talked to the family. I'm sure they've talked to friends. Come on. There's got to be something. But anyway, why the hell would you choose Instagram over something like Facebook? That makes no sense to me. It really, truly doesn't. Let's see. Watch as cops choke and kidnap innocent man for selling water on the street. An article from Free Thought Project, and it is a new article. I made sure the date before I shared it. That's, to me, ridiculous. Really? And that's my argument to people that, well, this is still the most freest country in the world. Oh, yeah? Really? I mean, I don't even want to hear the nonsense, well, he should have had a permit. Really? It's a little bit ridiculous. I mean, as long as he's not ripping anybody off, what the hell is it anybody else's business if he goes out and buys water in bulk and sets somewhere and sells it $1 a bottle or whatever the case may be and makes a little bit of money? What the hell is the big deal? Our Constitution guarantees us the ability to engage in free trade. I mean, it's crazy. And I know I often use the situation of a child selling lemonade in their yard. To me, it's the same thing. And as long as he's not stealing or robbing or anything like that, it's nobody else's business. As long as he's not tainting the water or anything like that, it's nobody else's business. Just not their business. Let's see. The latest California mayor, city will get through tragedy. And this article is filled full of, anti-gun stuff. Fear behind fury as DNI Ratcliffe could expose FISA files that Russia gators hope stay buried. And I hope he does. TSA discovers souvenir missile launcher in traveler's luggage. He was coming back from a deployment. I believe it was in Afghanistan was his deployment, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, he was just bringing this back. I guess it had already been used, or it was just a tube. It was an empty tube. And I guess they found it in his luggage and flipped out. He didn't get to keep it. They kept it so they could dispose of it properly. Really? It's an empty tube. Let the guy have his souvenir, It's ridiculous. It really, truly is ridiculous. 2 U.S. service members killed in Afghanistan. Let's see. And lastly here, garbage. Reporter says Trump called himself a 9/11 first responder, but video shows the opposite. And I shared that because it's just more proof of just how crazy the media is, how much the media will make up. It's unreal. It truly is unreal what's going on in this country, and the world for that matter. Anyway, let me go ahead and wrap up the monologue, and we'll get on with the live show. So, for those here for the live show, stick around. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. We'll be live till 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. For those that are watching the recording of the monologue, thank you very much. As always, God bless you. We love you, and be one with your spirit.